Today, we're going to dig into the anatomy of a truly man-made catastrophe happening right now in Sudan. We're going to look at the hard evidence behind the siege of a city called El Fasher and what it tells us about how hunger itself is being used as a weapon against millions of people. Okay, let's start with just one number, 9.6 million. Just take a second and let that number sink in. What could a number that massive even represent? Well, that's the number of people who have been forced to flee their homes but are still trapped inside Sudan. This isn't just a big number. According to the IPC, that's the global standard for measuring food crises, this is the world's single largest internal displacement crisis. And that staggering reality is the backdrop for everything we're about to unpack. But, this massive displacement, it's really just one symptom of a much, much bigger national disaster. To really get what's happening in El Fasher, we first have to zoom out and see how the entire country is teetering right on the edge. Just look at this map from the IPC. It paints a pretty devastating picture of the hunger crisis. The areas you see in orange, they're classified as being in crisis. But those deep red zones, that's emergency level. You can see almost the entire country is lit up, and it's especially bad in the western regions, in Darfur. And that brings us to another unbelievable figure, 21.2 million. As of September 2024, that's how many people in Sudan were facing severe, life-threatening food shortages. Let's be really clear about what that means. Nearly half the country's population is starving. Okay, so with that huge national crisis in mind, we're now going to zoom way in. We're going to focus on one city that has become the absolute epicenter of this whole thing, El Fasher in North Darfur. For nearly a year and a half, this city has been systematically, deliberately choked off by the Rapid Support Forces. You'll see them called the RSF. And make no mistake, this isn't just some accident of war. It's a calculated military strategy, and it has absolutely devastating human consequences. So how do we know the specifics of this siege? How can we be so sure? Well, a team at the Yale Humanitarian Research Lab has been using satellite imagery and other open-source data to document exactly what the RSF has been up to. And what they found, it's just staggering. This is a direct quote from their report. A literal kill box. I mean, that's a chilling phrase, isn't it? It's chosen very carefully to describe the military reality they've uncovered. The RSF isn't just surrounding the city, they're creating a trap. And this timeline shows just how methodical they were. Look at this. It started between May and July with a 7-kilometer earthen wall, they call it a berm, going up to the west. Then in July, another 9 kilometers to the north, and to build it, they completely flattened a village that was in the way. By early August, they connected those first 2 walls, sealing off the entire northwest. And then later that month, they started on an eastern wall, cutting off the city's main road. All told, the Yale team identified over 31 kilometers of these earthen walls. 31 kilometers. This was a massive construction project with one single, deadly goal: to wall in the city and control literally everything and everyone that tried to move in or out. Now, when you have a siege like this, there's an inevitable and truly horrific result. When you cut off food, when you cut off medicine and aid, you don't just create hardship, you manufacture a famine. And that is exactly what happened here. The word famine isn't something humanitarians throw around lightly. It has a very specific, very technical definition. To officially declare famine, that's what they call IPC Phase 5, you have to hit these 3 brutal benchmarks. At least 1 in 5 households facing an extreme lack of food, at least 30% of kids suffering from acute malnutrition, and a daily death rate that's at least double the norm. And in September of 2024, the Famine Review Committee confirmed the absolute worst. El Fasher had met all 3 criteria. Famine wasn't just a risk, it wasn't a possibility. According to the data, it was the reality on the ground. But here's where it gets even more sinister. This map shows a second effect of the siege. See this little symbol over El Fasher? It means scarce evidence because of limited or no humanitarian access. The very same walls that are starving the population are also stopping aid workers from getting in to even document the full scale of the disaster. It's a physical siege and an information blackout, all in one. But the little bits of data that have managed to get out are just horrifying. These numbers from inside El Fasher, they paint a visceral picture of what famine really is. 96% of families going to bed hungry, 87% with literally no food at all in the house. More than half the population having spent entire days and nights without eating anything. Anything. People are resorting to eating things like oilseed residue and groundnut shells just to stay alive. So the situation is catastrophic. There's no other word for it. But, and this is really important, it's not hopeless. The very same analysis that lays out the problems so clearly also provides a path forward, a list of things that absolutely must be done to save lives. And the recommendations are about as direct as you can get. First, enforce the ceasefire. Stop the fighting. Second, open up the roads and guarantee safe, sustained access for humanitarian aid. Third, protect the civilians trapped inside and let anyone who wants to leave do so safely. And finally, the international community has to step up with more funding to meet the sheer scale of this need. And we'll end on this final, really powerful quote from the IPC report. This is a man-made emergency. It's not a drought. It's not a flood. The analysis from Yale shows us exactly how it was built, and the data from the IPC shows us the human cost. So the question it leaves us with is, now that the steps needed to prevent further catastrophe are so crystal clear, will anyone take them?